Artificial intelligence is everywhere, right? It's helping us make decisions about everything from who gets a loan to who gets a job interview, even what we see in our social media feeds. But as it gets more and more powerful, a huge question is starting to bubble up. What if this amazing technology is also deeply unfair? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden biases inside AI.
This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? This isn't some abstract future thing. AI systems are already taking our own human baggage, our prejudices, and then putting them on steroids, amplifying them to a massive scale. The consequences are very real, and they're affecting people right now.
So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by really defining the problem. Then we'll unpack the main sources of this bias. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, how we can actually find it and fix it, looking at some real-world case studies and professional tools. And we'll wrap up by talking about what it really takes to build a fairer AI for all of us.
First things first, we have to be super clear about this. A biased AI isn't just a technical glitch. It's not just a bug in the code. It is a massive risk, both ethically and for any business. When these systems are unfair, they destroy public trust, they open the door to huge legal problems, and worst of all, they can deny people real opportunities. So dealing with bias, it's not optional. It's absolutely essential.
Okay, so where does this unfairness actually come from? It's not like it appears out of thin air. It creeps into the system during its creation. Let's break down the three main ways that bias gets baked into our technology.
The first one, and probably the most common, is data bias. Think of it this way. If you train an AI on skewed data, you're gonna get a skewed AI. It's that classic saying, garbage in, garbage out. The perfect example is facial recognition. If you train it mostly on pictures of people with light skin, its accuracy just plummets when it tries to identify someone with darker skin. The data didn't reflect reality, so the AI couldn't either. Next up is algorithmic bias. Now, this one is kind of fascinating because it means that even if you have perfect, balanced data, the model itself can be the problem. A developer might design an algorithm that pays a little too much attention to something like a person's zip code. Well, that zip code can accidentally be a stand-in, a proxy, for things like race or income. And just like that, you've got discrimination built right into the logic of the system.
And finally, the third source of bias. Well, it's us. It's human bias. You see, AI systems need to be taught. And often, that teaching is done by people who label data, who tell the AI, this is a cat, this is a dog. But if those human labelers have their own unconscious stereotypes, guess what gets passed on to the AI? The machine just learns the prejudice we teach it.
So knowing where the bias comes from is a huge first step. But how do you actually hunt it down in a super complex piece of software? This brings us to a really important strategy, and it's all based on one simple idea. You absolutely cannot fix a problem that you can't see or measure.
The process for finding it really boils down to 4 key steps. First, you have to audit your data. Is it actually diverse? Does it reflect the real world? Second, you look at your human labelers. Are they maybe introducing their own stereotypes? Third, once your model is built, you measure its outcomes. You check for something called demographic parity. For instance, are loan approval rates roughly the same for different groups? And finally, you have to compare the error rates. Is the AI making more mistakes for one group of people than for another?
All right, enough theory. How does this all play out in the real world? Let's dive into a few amazing case studies from some major companies that have had to wrestle with this problem head-on.
Our first one has become a famous cautionary tale in the tech world. A few years back, Amazon decided to build an AI to help automate its recruiting by screening resumes. It sounded like a great idea, but they hit a pretty big snag.
The issue was buried in the data. The AI had been trained on a decade's worth of resumes, mostly from men, because that's who dominated the tech industry. So it basically taught itself that male was the ideal. It got so bad that the system would literally penalize a resume just for including the word women's, like in captain of the women's chess club.
So what did Amazon do? They tried to fix it, but the bias was just too deep. In the end, their solution was pretty drastic. They scrapped the entire tool. And honestly, it was a powerful lesson for the whole industry that sometimes the most responsible thing to do is just pull the plug.
Let's pivot to another really high-profile case. the well-known problem of bias in facial recognition. It became famous for performing much, much worse when trying to identify women and people of color.
So what do you do about that? Well, in this situation, Microsoft went back to the source, the data. They retrained their model using a much more diverse and representative data set. And the result? Just look at this number. A 20-fold reduction in error rates for darker-skinned individuals. 20 times better. It's just a stunning example of how fixing the data can lead to incredible improvements.
For our last case study, let's look at ad platforms. This is a subtle one because the bias wasn't deliberately programmed in. It just emerged from how the algorithm was designed to work, leading to some really discriminatory outcomes for things like job and housing ads.
The problem was this. The system figured out that it could get more clicks on high-paying job ads by showing them mostly to men, or that it could optimize housing ads by effectively excluding certain groups. The fix here wasn't just technical. It was a policy change. Facebook stepped in and disabled the ability to target people based on sensitive demographics for these really important kinds of ads. It's proof that sometimes fixing AI means changing the human rules around it.
Okay, you might be listening to all of this and thinking, man, this sounds incredibly complicated, and you're not wrong. The good news is, you're not alone. A whole ecosystem of professional, sophisticated tools has sprung up to help developers and data scientists tackle bias in a systematic way.
Just imagine this for a second. What if you could actually sit down and interrogate your AI model? What if you could ask it, hey, what if this loan applicant was a woman instead of a man? Would you still make the same decision? That's not science fiction. That's exactly the idea behind some of these incredible new tools. And you can see the industry has really stepped up. You've got these comprehensive toolkits like IBM's AI 360, which has dozens of ways to measure and mitigate bias. You have Google's What If tool, which gives you these cool interactive ways to probe your model. Microsoft has FairLearn. The point is, this has become a serious discipline with serious professional tools to back it up. So let's bring this all home. What's the real path forward here? Building AI that's fair isn't about finding one single magic solution. It's about a deep, ongoing commitment to responsible innovation that runs through the entire process, from start to finish. It really boils down to a few core ideas. You have to start with diverse, representative data. That's non-negotiable. You have to be testing for fairness constantly, not just as a one-time check at the end. You need strong governance with a real human in the loop. But maybe most importantly, you need a culture within your organization that genuinely prioritizes building ethical, fair AI from day one.
You know, in the end, doing all this work to tackle bias isn't just about avoiding risk. It's really an investment in building better technology. It leads to products that work better, that people can actually trust, and that serve everyone in our society, not just a privileged few. It's the only way to build a sustainable and responsible future with AI.
And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As these incredibly powerful systems get woven into the fabric of our lives, what standard of fairness should we really demand from them? Should we aim for perfect equality of outcome? Or is it about equality of opportunity? That's a conversation that all of us need to be a part of.